Okay, how's everybody doing? Get started? Okay. Okay, well, let's get going here and like to talk about what I just feel like is the current mood amongst, I think, many of us, particularly here in the US. Um, so it has to do with the topic of uncertainty and how to live with uncertainty and how to be with it. But I'll start with what one of my first meditation teachers often asked during meditation. She would say, and I said it today, "Where are you right now?" And I just remember her voice saying that with her Australian accent. And what a helpful reminder that has been to stay mindful. Where are you right now? So I'd like to change up that question a little bit and broaden it somewhat, especially for those here in New York that are moving out of the stage of the pandemic that we've been in for so long. Because right now we're at the lowest point of infection rate in the United States since the pandemic began, if I'm not mistaken. And what a cause for celebration. So the question I pose is, where are you right now in your lives? Not just while you're meditating, off of the cushion. Where are you right now? And this leads to sort of a cascade of questions. So how are you feeling about the many changes that you've been through since this all began almost a year and a half ago? Are you ready to return to some imaginary version of normal? We don't even know what that is, but are you ready for whatever that is? Can you keep track of everything that happened? How is it for you? Maybe you're happy. That's great. Perhaps some of the changes that happened were very beneficial to you. Um, at times, it can be really hard to comprehend all that's gone on. And we live here now. We live here right now in each moment. Where are we right now? Is the question. But yet, so often we find ourselves ruminating about the past or thinking about the future, and we need to keep coming back to the present because that's all we are really able to be in is the present. So again, how are you feeling after all of this turbulence? Where are you headed? You can think of that very specifically. Are you working? Are you not working? Did you move? Did you lose family members? Maybe you made new friends. Maybe you gained all kinds of new insights. Are you sad for everything that's happened? Are you feeling safe? Maybe you're really enthusiastic about going to a baseball game or traveling again. Where are you right now? So we're in transition. And even though this is an unprecedented, unpredictable time with changes that have been very, very consequential to probably all of us, we're always in transition. So maybe this is just standing out as, oh, this is big. Well, okay, sure. But it's transition and it's always happening. We're always changing. We're not the same people we were just an hour ago. And it's not only that we're changing, and it's not only that things are changing, it's that this transition is into an unknown. How could we possibly know what tomorrow will bring? We lay out our plans, we make our schemes, we come up with our ideas, and they unfold how they unfold. We don't know. This change is always leading us into unknown. So I'd like to just spend some time going through some ways to survive and, dare I say, flourish in this unknown. Now, the Buddhist teachings suggests that we can become accustomed to and thrive with uncertainty. And it's no small task, I would say. I think we're all working on this in some way. The teachings do not suggest that we do nothing when something wise can be done to improve our circumstances. But I also would like to comment that uncertainty does not mean being unhinged. They're not one and the same. Unknown and uncertainty is just that. Being unhinged is something different. They're not coupled together, although they can be. So I wanted to just talk for a couple of minutes about a Nobel Peace Prize winner, the first woman from Africa to be awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. Her name was Wangari Maathai. She was an environmentalist and made tremendous change in Kenya, especially in terms of planting trees. And anyway, she said, we're constantly being bombarded by problems that we face, and sometimes we can get completely overwhelmed. So we start to wonder, how can we make a difference? We'd like to make a difference, for sure, because it gives us a sense of well-being and it gives a sense of security. Well, she told this story about the hummingbird. And here's the story. It's a children's story. The story of the hummingbird is about a huge forest being consumed by a fire. And all of the animals in the forest come out and they're transfixed as they watch the forest burning, and they feel overwhelmed, very, very powerless, except for this little hummingbird. The hummingbird says, I'm going to do something about the fire. So it flies to the nearest stream and takes a drop of water and it puts it on the fire. And it goes back and forth and up and down to the stream and back to the fire, drops some drops on the fire and goes back as fast as it can. And in the meantime, all the other animals, the much bigger animals like the elephant with its big trunk that could bring tons of water, they're just standing there helpless. And they say to the hummingbird, what do you think you can do? You're too little. This fire is too big. Your wings are so little and your beak is so small that you can only bring a drop of water at a time. So, but if they continue to discourage the hummingbird, the hummingbird turns to them without wasting any time and says, I'm doing the best I can. And that's what Wangari Maathai suggested we all should do. When her country in the 70s and 80s was ravaged by all of the trees that were torn down and people were suffering, not having enough water and supplies and firewood, she did what she could do. She taught people how to plant trees, and they did what they could do. And over time, millions of trees were planted. And politically, it became a tremendous problem for the government that didn't like this. They kept planting trees. We should all be like a hummingbird. I may be insignificant, but I certainly don't want to be like the animals watching the planet go down the drain, she said. I will be a hummingbird. I will do the best I can. She founded in the 1970s a movement called the Greenbelt Movement, which still exists. And it's an organization that works to empower women through environmental conservation and educates communities around the world about their political, economic, environmental opportunities. The story of the hummingbird describes Wangari's motivation around these kind of pursuits, but it's also an allegory for participation and personal empowerment that we can apply to any challenge. So how can we be the hummingbird today when we go through all of these unknown, uncertainty through this changing time? So let's just look at a number of ways, and I would think you're familiar with a lot of these, but I think it's worth a reminder for all of us to sort of take a look and just think about it. So let's start. What can we do? Well, let's start with awareness. Without awareness, I think we're quite lost. So awareness will allow yourself to get comfortable and allow your curiosity to arise. Maybe to do this, maybe you need to center yourself with a few breaths or sit down and meditate. Um, but let yourself see what you're experiencing. Become aware of what you're experiencing and get out of the way and observe. Don't try to fix everything. Then let the internal walls down, those walls that tense you up. If you can let them down even just a little bit, then you'll be able to see a little more clearly. When we're tense, we don't see. The idea is to observe, and if you're comfortable enough, to explore. And sometimes those inner walls that we let come up that we think are protecting us actually cause more suffering as opposed to relieve the suffering. And I suppose that is because we're sometimes unwilling to look at our difficult feelings. So allow yourself to become aware and curious in a non-judgmental way. Step out of the way and watch what's happening. And if it's too much, don't push. Give yourself space. Okay, next one is gratitude. When things are tough and feel overwhelming, gratitude, we all, I think, all know here, is very powerful. And I'd suggest that even if it's contrived gratitude, it can help ease the feeling of uncertainty. There's so many meditation that I've been in, people talk about just allow a small smile on your face. Well, maybe you're not feeling happy, but sometimes that little bit of a smile allows you to feel a little happier. It works from the inside out. So when you feel like there's no ground to stand on, maybe you can get out of your head. You can look around, open your eyes, look at the room you're in, see where you are. Get out of your head a little bit. Maybe look out the window at the sky, or maybe look at those wonderful trees in the park. Recall a few simple things that you're grateful for. If you start comparing and you find yourself, well, I don't have this and they have that, well, try to just let that go and come back to what you do have. Forgiveness is another one. And forgiveness is clearly a form of giving. The word's right. Giving is right in there, and forgiving. And that's a form of letting go. I would say you can forgive yourself. I think forgiveness is hard for us forgiving ourselves. But you can forgive yourself and let go. You can forgive others, and you don't have to approve or condone of anything that's happened or that they've done, but you can still forgive them. If our own sense of, if only for our own sense of ease, let it go, because we can't change the past. We try to change what someone's done or what we've done. We're on a fool's errand, and it's not going to happen. The past has happened. So let go. Let the tightening of the grip go. Contraction in thought, body, and mind really closes our hearts. And when we close our hearts, the possibilities in our mind's eye diminish. But when we lean into acceptance and we allow our natural curiosity to arise, the possibilities open. We have the ability to look at things without being on autopilot with our usual habitual assumptions, and we can stay awake. This can ease a negative frame of mind. You can try this with small things. This crossed my mind when I was doing a crossword puzzle the other day. I was out of the easy crossword puzzles and I was onto the really hard ones. And I thought to myself, oh gosh, I can't do this. This is beyond my ability. My spelling isn't so good. I don't have the knowledge. But then I didn't look at it that way. All of a sudden I changed and I was like, oh, I'm really curious. What is this? Maybe this is about such and such. All of a sudden, I was able to do more of the crossword puzzle. So a lot of it comes from the attitude. And I'm not even talking about the results. The results of the puzzle are really on the side. It's the results inside that changes when you start to think, oh, there's another way. I don't have to go to that. I'm a terrible speller. I've always been a terrible speller. I'm not good at these things. You've defeated yourself from the beginning. How about drop that ancient habit and just see what else could there possibly be? Is there another way? Maybe that can happen when you're exposed to someone you don't like. I was exposed to someone that I found was irking me. They weren't doing anything towards me, but I just found something about them was bothering me. And I knew I was exposed to them again. And I somehow let go of that. And then I realized, well, maybe this is my thing, not theirs. And maybe if I let go, something else will happen. And sure enough, something else did happen. I found myself appreciating the person. Well, that's pretty powerful. Forgiveness. Well, meditation. During meditation, we did this. We can allow our body to breathe gently without stiffness. We can allow every cell in your body the freedom to move freely as it wishes. While we look for stillness in meditation, we don't look for stillness in our body in that way. We're looking for stillness of our mind. We're looking for peace of our mind. Our cells and our blood and our heart and our lungs, all of it is always moving. So let go of the rigidness and let your mind get still. So now digging in a little bit more. We can drop our resentments and complaints. We can let go of holding on to ourselves. We can look at the world around us and connect with sorrow. And we can connect with joy. We can let our hearts, our broken hearts, crack open. And to open our heart in this way is our link with all those who have ever loved. So with that, if we can allow ourselves to have the courage to know that we're not alone and to move out of that isolated, we're alone. We realize we're part of a vast net of so many people, so many beings that have been through what we've been through in one way or another, have felt those feelings before, have had their hearts broken, have felt the tremendous joy. And we can let ourselves sink down to that. It's very humbling. And we can widen our circle of compassion with that. It's really radical thinking in many ways to not shut out anyone from our hearts. To not make anyone an enemy. And yet, as we do that, as we don't make others the enemy, our view of the world changes. What and whom we can work with changes, and how we can work expands. I think this is powerful, and I think this is something that can be achieved with openness and some fearlessness. We can allow ourselves to be humbled. There are so many energies in the world that are sometimes greater than us. With humbling to that truth, we can be the hummingbird and we can find empowerment even during the most difficult of times. You see, it's not just whether the hummingbird put the fire out. It's that the hummingbird found inner strength to do what the hummingbird could do. Another thing that I find difficult, but I seek to do when things get pretty difficult emotionally, is looking at the bigger picture. I love that question. Is there another way to look at this? Ask yourself that next time you're stuck. Is there another way to look at this? Don't go searching for a practical answer. How can I put out that fire? While you might need to do that, is there another way to look at it? And of course, if you're honest, the only answer is yes. And that leads us away from our small way of thinking. We may not know what those other ways are, but now we've opened our hearts. We've cracked our heart open just a little bit. We've opened that door just a little bit more. Like, oh, okay. All right. One of the best things is kindness. One of the best things in the world is kindness. So learning how to be kind to ourselves allows us to discover what is bitter and what is sweet. And not just in our world, but in the grander universe. When we regard others as precious and as whole beings, our opening to the world in this way benefits ourselves and the others simultaneously. All of our lives are filled with relationships, even if the people aren't here in the room with you. How about when you're struggling, do something kind. Maybe call a friend. Hi, I've been thinking about you. Or maybe call a friend and say, I need some help. I was hoping you can help me solve this or deal with this difficult time. Okay, so, as I was sort of just exploring all of these ideas that, like I said, I'm sure many of you have thought of in the past, and reading about it, it came clear to me that the paramitas, the perfection practices, the Buddhist perfection practices surround or are that's what this is as far as I can see right now. I'm not claiming to be an expert in teaching the paramitas, although that would be wonderful. But the Theravada Buddhist tradition has 10. Some of the other traditions list them as 6. I'll read off the 10. Generosity, virtue, renunciation, discernment, persistence, endurance, truth, determination, goodwill, and equanimity. Whichever school of Buddhist thought you're from, they overlap and they have much in common. And the first thing is that they're a code of ethics, but they're not a rigid code of ethics. The power in them lies in that they're not commandments. But that the power in them is that they change our habitual reactions and they humble us and keep us honest. And they're all interrelated. They typically start with generosity, but some might teach it from determination, the 8th one, as the first one as well. So I'll just touch on a few of these before we go to your comments. Generosity, let's talk about that. The giving practice of generosity is really training in letting go. It allows us to see for ourselves where we're holding back and where we're clinging. And as we know, clinging is the source of our suffering. From a true gesture of generosity, true letting go will evolve. Our perspective will change, and some negativity will dissolve. determination, or sometimes discipline. And discipline is not a dirty word, although I certainly grew up thinking discipline meant you were locked in a box or something. But determination, let's use determination. This gives us focus. It gives us motivation. It allows our energy to be used in a positive way. It gives us direction to practice. Without determination, would you ever sit and meditate? Probably not, or maybe so, I don't know. I wouldn't. Skill determination begins with discernment. So what's discernment? Discernment is making wise distinctions that keep us on the path of ending suffering. Allows us to put forward energy and effort without worrying about being pleased at this very moment. And it dissolves the causes of our aggression. And like I said, meditation practice requires determination. Determination and discipline provide structure and support that's needed in order to slow down enough to be present and to be here right now. Right, here's a favorite. Patience. Thich Nhat Hanh, there's a story about Thich Nhat Hanh. Let's see if we have time. I'll just make this short. Some of you may have heard this. Thich Nhat Hanh, the Vietnamese monk, had something that was due that day, and his assistant came in and said, "Oh, monk, we need to work on this." And he said, "Let's have a cup of tea." And the person said, "But we need to finish this." And he said, "Sit down, we'll have some tea." And then he said, "Let's take a walk." And then they came back and they worked on what they had to do and finished it in advance of the deadline, as the story has been told to me. Well, patience is difficult, I find, but we can really learn by actually experiencing it. And it brings so much benefit. It gives us the space we need to respond wisely when somebody lashes out or does something. It gives us a chance to regroup on our thoughts for a moment. It gives us a chance to settle our body. It gives us a chance to practice with restlessness and boredom and anger and excitement and everything else that we have going on. I think it's really wonderful to see what happens when you don't force those feelings away. While it may be uncomfortable sometimes, you can see them, and maybe you'll see them arise and fall. You can get to know them. You can get to know what those feelings are like. Patience is the opposite of aggression. It's kind. Okay, I think this is the last one here. Yeah, this is where I'll wrap it up on wisdom, equanimity, kind of putting them two together. Wisdom through meditation has the ability to cut through the suffering that comes from seeking to protect our territory and our desire to change that which is unknown. When we can truly realize that it's not possible to do that, to change what is unknown, to fully protect our territory. For instance, I live in this wonderful apartment. I'm so happy living here. This is not going to be my apartment forever. I have no idea what's going to happen. And someday I won't be here, and maybe this apartment will be someone else's, and it'll be their apartment. We can't protect our territory to that degree. Sure, I can hold on to this iPhone and say, this is my iPhone, until it's not. When we truly realize this, we can be free from some of the suffering of the clinging and the holding on and the aversion. When we can see things as they really are, we can see our desires and aversions and with mindfulness. And we can move from narrow-mindedness to flexibility, and perhaps even fearlessness. And perhaps at that point, we can live with the unknown, knowing that the ground beneath us may be solid right now, but it's not solid forever. Maybe that's okay, because maybe that's the way it really is. So I would love to hear your comments and thoughts, and I hope this was helpful. That certainly was my intention, and so open it up to who, I think Vera is our Q&A moderator today. Hi, Vera. I hope your session this morning was wonderful. I'm sorry I wasn't there. The previous one was so good.